Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to 5 people who disappeared but would reappear years later. And yeah, I've been sort of doing different types of reactions recently. I've been doing a lot of compilations, I'll be honest. But have I done a reaction like this before? I don't even know. I don't think I have. I think this is the first time I've ever looked at something like this. Which is actually kind of crazy because I feel like these stories are really always, like, they're really interesting to sort of learn about and see what people who've gone through this, like what they went through basically. It is just crazy how these stories can happen. And I mean, when you think about people who disappear, it's usually sometimes they've disappeared for years and years, or maybe even like 10, 20 years, and then they appear, and it's just crazy how that can happen. But I mean, yeah, we're here with this reaction. Hopefully you're going to enjoy. If this does go down well, I'm definitely going to be doing more of these reactions. If this doesn't, it's just a one-off thing, but just thought I'd react to something that I'd find interesting and that you would find interesting. But I mean, I'm down for suggestions. Comment underneath this video what you want to see in future. And I mean, yeah, quick shout out to my Instagram, my Twitter, links in the description for those interested. Closing in on 7k on my Instagram, so I'd appreciate that. Same for my Patreon, links all there. And I mean, yeah, let's just jump into this. Let's see some of these stories, man. It's a pretty cool intro, to be fair. For a channel of 350k, it's a really cool intro. Case closed.
Tanya Cash grew up in Elizabeth, Pennsylvania. She lived with her father and her stepmother.
Bro, her voice is scaring me.
In 1996, she was 14 years old and studied...
I don't know, the way she's talking is as if she's been abducted. She's giving me the creeps, man.
At Cornell Middle School. A 37-year-old security guard at the school named Thomas Hose would befriend Tanya. Thomas would often take her out of her classes to talk to her. One day, when he caught her skipping classes, he kissed her. As their relationship grew, Thomas would convince Tanya to run away from her home and come live with him. On February 10th, 1996, Tanya gathered her belongings and left her home.
Bro, these stories were like teachers or like people from schools sort of getting relationships with students and then run away with them are the weirdest ones, man. They're so messed up.
Her parents thought she had just run away like she had done in the past and didn't report her missing until a week later when she still hadn't returned home.
What the fuck?
Due to her history of running away, the police would eventually give up the search after just a few days. 10 years later, in 2006, a 24-year-old woman named Nikki Allen walked into a grocery store and told the owner that her name was Tanya Cash and she was being held captive at the hands of Thomas Hose and had been since she was a teenager. The police arrested Thomas. After escaping and coming home, Tanya wrote a book about her experiences called Memoir of a Milk Carton Kid, The Tanya Nicole Cash Story. In the book, she wrote about her trying ordeal. In the beginning, as Thomas lived with his parents, Tanya was kept in his bedroom on the second.
So the guy lived with his parents and had... Oh my... How wouldn't they hear anything? What the
floor. Thomas went to great lengths to keep Tanya hidden. She wasn't allowed to leave the bedroom and had to go to the toilet in a bucket. Most of the time, she ate only peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, along with a banana...
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, they do slap. But in this scenario, obviously, that's not good.
And a can of Faygo soda pop. About once a week, in the night, Thomas would lead her down to a cellar with cold concrete floors to take a shower. She said in an interview, quote, "I was fine at first. I thought I was in love and felt my sacrifices were a labor of my love for Tom. Soon, however, the ordeal began to take its toll." In 2000...
That must be so depressing, man. When you're so young and you've just sort of been tricked into something like this.
Thomas created a new identity for Tanya, Nikki Allen, and introduced her to his parents as his girlfriend that would be moving in with him. After this, Tanya was allowed to leave the house occasionally with a strict curfew. 10 years later, after she was originally coerced to run off with Thomas, Tanya escaped. In 2007, Thomas pled guilty to 3 counts of involuntary deviant sexual intercourse, aggravated indecent assault, statutory sexual assault, interfering with the custody of a child, corruption of a minor, and child endangerment. Thomas pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 5 to 15 years.
5 to 15 years? Are you stupid? I was thinking it's going to be life. 5 to 15. What is wrong with the fucking law systems, man? I swear, like, around the world, I swear, like, paedophiles or kidnappers or whatever, a mixture of the two, which makes it even worse. Unless I'm going to hear something now that says there's, like, an added additional sentence or whatever.
In prison.
No. 5 to 15. So he might be out of prison now, then? God damn. That is an absolute joke. Stephen
Kubacki was a student at Hope College, a small private Christian university near the southeastern shore of Lake Michigan. In February of 1978, Stephen ventured out for several hours of solo cross-country skiing. He would not return home. A day later, when he still hadn't returned, he was reported missing. A massive search was conducted. Searchers found his skis and ski poles on the beach of Lake Michigan and footprints on the ice leading up to the lake, but none walking away. When the rescue crew flew over the area, it was reported that his footprints appeared to stop at the frozen water's edge. There was no sign that the ice had broken anywhere or any clue as to what had happened to Stephen. Later that day, his backpack was found in the same general area as his skis. No other clues would turn up, and it appeared that he vanished into thin air. The search was called off soon after. Then, 15 months later, on May 5th, 1979, Stephen walked up to his father's house and rang the doorbell. Stephen was surprised to know that he had been missing for 15 months. He told his father he had very little memory of where he had been.
What the fuck?
Stephen said that he had suddenly woken up in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, 700 miles from where he went missing, lying in a meadow wearing clothes that did not belong to him. He also had a small satchel beside him with maps in it, none of which were his. He said that he felt like he had recently been running. His father lived in Pittsfield, 40 miles from where he woke up.
Fuck?
Other than that, he had no recollection of where he was or what happened to him in the last 15 months. Following his return, he refused to speak about his encounter with the media, since he had no recollection of it whatsoever. He refused to talk to a therapist, since he said he didn't have to, as he didn't have any psychological problems. In 1983, Stephen got his master's in linguistics.
What the fuck? This one could have its own story to it. He woke up 15 months after, just somewhere else. That is... My mind is blown already, man. There's still more cases to go. My head has already gone, man.
And years later, a PhD in clinical psychology followed.
Shout out to him.
Some would say that getting lost ultimately helped Stephen achieve his goal of helping others find themselves. In the 1900s, Dr. William Horatio Bates was a well-respected ophthalmologist in New York City. In August of 1902, William wrote a note to his wife stating that he was called out of town to perform some major operation and that he was, quote, glad to get so much money for us all. He further added in his note that he was in a hurry and would write more details later. The note was strange, as William was already a wealthy man, and his excitement about money seemed odd. Strangely, William wouldn't return home and wouldn't write as he had said so in the note. When he failed to return, his wife started searching for him. William was a prominent Mason, and his wife would ask for the help of the Masonic Society to try and find him. They distributed his picture around the world. Soon his wife would receive information that William was working as a medical assistant at the Charing Cross Hospital in London after first being admitted
Boy, he just left his wife
as a patient. Strangely, even though William had a bank account with plenty of money with which he could live in the lap of luxury in London, he was reported to be malnourished. Moreover, when his wife arrived in London, William couldn't recognize or remember her. William, however, did accept her offer to stay with her at the Savoy Hotel to rest and to help him recover his memories. At the hotel, he seemed to have recalled being called away from New York to board a ship and perform an operation on someone with a brain abscess. Hearing this, his wife decided to stay in London to help him recover his memories. But 2 days later, William walked out of the Savoy Hotel and disappeared once more. His wife would never see him again. She spent the next few years tirelessly searching for him in Europe and America until her death in 1907. In 1910, Dr. J.E. Kelly, a good friend of William's, would pass through Grand Forks, North Dakota. There, he would run into William, working in an ophthalmology practice that he had set up himself.
My head is gone. What is this guy on? Is he just like not wanting his wife to have anything to do with him or what? What the fuck?
Sometime after his second disappearance. However, he still had no memory of his past life. Kelly convinced him to return to New York and
But he could have just been lying about that, surely. Maybe he was just trying to forget about his wife or kids or whatever. I guess he just had a wife at that
to practice together as partners. William married 3 times. After being widowed twice, he married Emily C. Lyerman, his longtime personal assistant. William never recovered his memories of his previous life, nor what had happened to him after his first disappearance.
I mean, shit, man. That's wild. The thumbnail.
Natasha Ryan was a 14-year-old girl
The way she talks is creeping me the hell out, man. I'm not even lying.
living with her parents in Rockhampton, Queensland in 1998. On August 31st, 1998, Natasha was dropped off at her school by her mother. When she returned to pick her up, she wasn't there, and she was reported missing to police. An exhaustive and extensive search was carried out for her. In the month prior to her disappearance, Natasha had run away from home once, aided by her 21-year-old boyfriend, Scott Black. However, she was found 2 days later. Scott was fined $1,000 in November of 1999 when he pled guilty to willful obstruction of police. He was asked if he knew anything about her second disappearance, to which he said he did not know anything about Natasha's whereabouts. 8 months after Natasha went missing, another girl by the name of Kira Steinhardt went missing while walking home from school.
Jesus.
After following several leads, police arrested Leonard John Fraser. During Natasha's disappearance, several women had gone missing. The police suddenly began considering the possibility that Leonard was a serial killer and may have murdered Natasha as well. Hopes of finding her diminished, and she was soon declared legally dead, with the belief that she had fallen victim to Leonard. Her family held a memorial service in Bundaberg, Queensland, on her 17th birthday in 2001. In 1999, Leonard confessed to 5 murders, including Kira's.
So they had a fucking funeral for someone who isn't even going to be he's not even going to end up being dead. That's absolutely nuts. I mean, obviously you can't blame them, but just the thought of that, the relief that they must have when they actually see her again, I can't imagine what that would be like.
And Natasha's. The confession was believed to have been made in a deal with police to avoid the general population in jail, given the dim view inmates have on child rapists and killers.
What fucking
Then, on the 10th
man.
of April
Dirty little
2003,
rat,
as the trial for Leonard was underway in Brisbane Supreme Court, police raided a house in Rockhampton. There they found Natasha Ryan, alive, hiding in a cupboard.
Is this a real picture?
It was found that Natasha had staged her disappearance and had been living with her boyfriend Scott.
What the fuck? This bitch. This fucking bitch.
Since disappearing on the 31st of August in 1998.
In a fucking your family had a funeral for you. You fucking hell. How devilish is your mind to do something like that?
During her first year in hiding, Natasha had no contact with the outside world. She rarely left her boyfriend's home and stayed inside with the lights off and the curtains drawn. Whenever a visitor came over, she would hide inside a cupboard. For 4 years, they moved a number of times in the cover of night between properties in Yeppoon and Rockhampton. She had been living in Rockhampton for 6 months prior to being found in 2003. 2 days later, Natasha attended her own murder trial and told the court that she had never met Leonard and did not know the witness who stated she had seen her with him before she went missing. A jury found Leonard guilty of 3 murders, and he was sentenced to 3 indefinite prison terms on the 13th of June 2003. He died in prison on the 1st of January 2007. In later interviews, Natasha said that by the time she wanted to reunite with her mother, it was too late. The lie had become too big, so she hid. In 2005, Scott pled guilty to telling lies to investigators about not knowing about Natasha's whereabouts. The Rockhampton District Court sentenced Scott to 3 years in jail for perjury. However, the sentence was suspended after 12 months. A year later, Natasha was found guilty of causing a false police investigation and was fined $1,000.
Oh, I thought she was going to get fucking locked up herself after. after that whole scenario. Wouldn't be surprised, but only fined 1,000. I'd have thought it'd cost a lot more than that. But, and last one, John Darwin.
On the 21st of March in 2002, John Darwin, a teacher and former prison officer, went on a canoe trip in the North Sea. He was last seen paddling in his canoe at Seaton Carew and Hartlepool. When he didn't return home, his
Why did she sound so British when she said Hartlepool? It is a British place, but
canoe at
just listen to her voice.
Seaton Carew and Hartlepool.
In Hartlepool. What the fuck?
When he didn't return home, his wife, Anne Darwin, reported him missing. A massive search involving police and Coast Guard was launched, stretching all the way from Seaton Carew to Staithes. The following day, his double-ended paddle was found at the sea near Seaton Carew. However, no sign of John could be found. The search was later called off, and John was presumed dead. Months later, his smashed canoe would turn up at the North Gar, near a spot known locally as the Blue Lagoon. In April of 2003, Darwin was declared legally dead. His death certificate stated that after going out to sea, he probably encountered difficulties as a result of which he died. With the help of a death certificate, the grieving widow, Anne, was able to claim her husband's £25,000 life insurance policy, his £25,000 teacher's pension, his £58,000
She's getting money. I'm seeing how this is going to bite them in the back when he comes back. Maybe it was all staged. It probably was. We're going to see what happened. I mean, that's not a smart thing to do, but I kind of rate it. But again, it's very illegal, so I don't recommend.
Prison service pension, as well as £4,000 in payouts from the Department of Work and Pensions, and a further £137 from a Norwich Union mortgage insurance policy. The total was £249,000. Darwin was presumed dead until 2007. In 2007, a man walked into a London police station claiming he was John Darwin. He told investigators that he had no memory of the last few years. He was able to give his name, date of birth, and personal details, but did not remember where he had been. Anne in the interview said she was overjoyed that her husband was alive. However, unknown to the Darwins, police had been investigating his disappearance, having received a tip that John might be alive and living in Panama. Soon, Darwin's story was exposed as a pack of lies when a photograph emerged on the internet of him posing with his wife in 2006.
Oh, you devilish human.
Proving that he was alive all along. It came to light that John had faked his death to escape substantial debts from a failed property and a shared business. Incredibly, Anne helped him pull this off. He, along with his wife, planned his death to claim life insurance money to pay off the debts that he had accrued. According to John, after he faked his disappearance, he moved to the Lake District and would phone Anne regularly to see if the coast was clear for him to return home. A few weeks later, he returned to his home and would stay in an adjacent in-law unit to the family home that the Darwins owned. By the day, he would sit in the adjacent flat, and at night he would creep into the family home through a secret doorway hidden behind a wardrobe. The couple lied to their family members throughout the ordeal. Even their own sons had no idea he was alive.
What?
He allegedly would stay in the in-law unit whenever family members would visit, or if his son stayed overnight. Meanwhile, his wife pretended to friends, neighbors, and her two sons that her husband was dead. As time passed, John became more confident and would venture out donning a hat and regularly limping to conceal his identity. One time, one of his tenants recognized him and asked, "Aren't you supposed to be dead?" John begged him not to tell anyone and got away with it. In 2006, Darwin came up with a new plan to move to Panama and live more openly. He applied for a birth certificate in the name of a dead boy who had been born around the same time as him. Using the birth certificate, he applied for a passport in the name of the dead child, John Jones. His wife told their son she needed to start a new life.
Bro, this is just evil. This is what money will do to people, or being in debt. I understand that when you're in debt, it's a sticky-ass situation, but if this is your go-to, then I mean, and you're putting your family through this and all your friends, wow.
And would be moving to Panama. The couple flew to Panama on the 14th of July in 2006, where they were photographed by a Panamanian property agent, and the resulting photograph was posted on the internet. They had planned to buy a house there. However, following a change in Panama's visa laws, John told his wife that their identities needed to be verified by UK authorities, and his alias would not pass this time. Darwin then decided to go back home and pretend to have been suffering from amnesia. However, by that time, the police were already investigating his disappearance after a colleague of Anne's had overheard a phone conversation between the couple. Anne was convicted of 6 counts of fraud and 9 counts of money laundering and was jailed for 6.5 years. She served 3.5. Darwin pled guilty to fraud, as well as 1 count of falsely obtaining a passport, and was jailed for 6 years and 3 months. He was released in 2011 after serving half his sentence.
Fuck. These stories are wild, man. These are wild stories. Drug dealers are being given life sentences, but someone who kidnapped a 14-year-old for 10 years only gets 5. Bro, the systems are fucked. It just makes my mind ache that injustice. Kidnapped and then raped them. Like, he was called a rapist as well, so I guess, like, how is that how isn't that like 10 life sentences or 100 life sentences? It's fucked. It just drives me nuts, man. But that's not just the US, man. It's in the UK. I think it's just everywhere. Just the systems are fucked. A guy who blacked out for 15 months. I don't need a psychologist. A guy who blacked out for 15 months. By the way, I'm also becoming a psychologist. We all talked about Tanya, but are we going to talk about the dude whose footprints just stopped in the snow and then showed up in Massachusetts 15 months later with no memory? What? I feel bad for the woman who spent the remaining years of her life just looking for her dear husband, but he didn't even remember her. Yeah, that's just depressing, man. That is depressing. Relationship is a really generous term for 37-year-old essentially grooming a 40. Very, very generous word. These men forgetting how they disappeared is so annoying. They didn't forget, they just wanted to escape their marriages. That's what I'm saying. Stephen literally just glitched in real life. Doctor Who can't remember his previous marriage, but he never forgot his career. Really sketchy. Yeah, man. These stories are nuts, though. I enjoyed this, but again, depends how this goes down. If you enjoy this as well, I'll be down to do more of these reactions, but let me know in the comments. But yeah, until next time, like, subscribe. Peace.